Sometimes the most revealing moments happen when nobody expects them. Not during a red carpet appearance. Not during a rehearsed television segment. Just a quiet scroll through social media and suddenly there it is. A photo that feels less like content and more like a window into something real. That's exactly what happened when Kelly/Ripa shared a throwback photo of herself and Mark Consuelos in bed, and almost instantly, viewers didn't just see a picture. They felt something. It's worth pausing on that reaction for a second, because it says a lot about why this couple continues to matter to so many people. In an era where celebrity relationships are often curated within an inch of their life, every photo staged, every caption workshopped, a simple, unpolished throwback lands differently. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't try to prove anything. It just exists quietly as a piece of two people's shared history. And maybe that's precisely why it resonated the way it did. For longtime followers of Kelly&Mark, this wasn't a random image pulled from nowhere. It was another entry in a long, ongoing story, one that's been unfolding publicly for decades, but somehow still manages to feel personal every single time. That's a rare thing in entertainment. Most celebrity couples eventually start to feel like brands. Kelly&Mark, for whatever reason, have managed to stay human. So why did a single throwback photo generate this much conversation? Part of it is nostalgia. Part of it is affection. But there's something deeper at play too. Something about the way this couple has always let their audience in just enough without ever losing the sense that some things still belong only to them. Think about it. Kelly/Ripa has spent years on live television talking openly about her marriage. The arguments, the inside jokes, the small daily frustrations that come with sharing a life with someone for so long. Mark Consuelos, in turn, has never hidden his affection for her, often teasing her on air with a warmth that feels more like a couple who still genuinely enjoy each other than two people performing chemistry for cameras. When you build that kind of transparency over years, a single throwback photo doesn't feel like an isolated moment. Feels like continuity. Feels like proof. That's really what a lot of viewers respond to when they see something like this. Not the image itself, but what it represents. A reminder that this isn't a couple who suddenly appeared on our screens fully formed as Kelly&Mark, TV's favorite duo. This is a relationship that existed long before the cameras, and one that clearly still exists in quieter, unfiltered moments away from them too. There's also something worth noting in how differently audiences interpret vulnerability depending on who's sharing it. A staged anniversary post can feel like marketing. A candid, almost imperfect throwback, the kind that looks like it was pulled from an old phone rather than crafted for an algorithm, tends to feel like trust. Many viewers noticed exactly that texture in this particular share. It didn't look engineered for engagement. It looked like something Kelly simply wanted to revisit, and decided to let her audience revisit with her. That distinction matters more than people often realize. Audiences today are remarkably good at sensing authenticity, even when they can't quite articulate why something feels genuine. Some fans wondered whether the timing of the post was tied to something specific. An anniversary, a reflective mood, a quiet nod to how far they've come. Nothing has been confirmed about the exact reasoning behind the post, and speculation about the why isn't really the point. What matters is the emotional response it triggered, and that response says everything about the kind of connection Kelly&Mark have built with their audience over the years. It's easy to forget, watching two people banter effortlessly on a morning talk show, that a real marriage exists underneath all of it. The version of Kelly&Mark that viewers see on live is warm, funny, occasionally chaotic in the most charming way, but it's still a performance in the sense that it's shaped for television. A throwback photo shared without commentary or explanation strips that away. There's no punchline. There's no segment structure. There's just two people at some point in their life together, existing in a private moment that later became public by choice. And that choice is worth sitting with for a second. Celebrities don't have to share these things. Kelly could keep every intimate memory locked away, separate from the version of her life that's broadcast daily. The fact that she doesn't, that she continues to let audiences glimpse the softer, more personal side of her marriage, is part of what makes her relationship with her fans feel reciprocal rather than transactional. It almost seemed like this photo wasn't posted for spectacle at all, but simply because it meant something to her in that moment, and sharing it felt natural. That kind of instinct, whether intentional or not, is exactly what builds long-term audience loyalty. People don't stay emotionally invested in a couple for over a decade because of perfectly timed publicity. They stay invested because every so often, something slips through that feels completely unguarded, and it reminds them why they cared in the first place. There's also a broader conversation happening here about long-term relationships in general, one that extends far beyond Kelly&Mark specifically. Culturally, there's a growing fascination with couples who've stayed together for decades, especially in an industry where long marriages are often treated as the exception rather than the norm. When a couple like this shares something intimate, even something as simple as an old bedroom photo, it becomes a quiet statement about endurance. About choosing each other, publicly and privately, again and again, long after the initial spark that made headlines. Viewers began discussing whether this was part of a larger pattern in how the couple has been sharing more personal, less polished content recently. Some interpreted it as a sign of comfort, the kind that comes only after years of being fully seen by someone and choosing to stay anyway. Others simply appreciated the honesty of it, the sense that even in the public eye, Kelly and Mark haven't lost the parts of their relationship that feel ordinary, human, and real. That ordinariness is underrated. It's easy to assume audiences want spectacle, drama, big reveals. But so often what actually keeps people watching, following, and caring is the small stuff. A candid glance. An old photo. A caption that doesn't try too hard. These are the details that make a celebrity relationship feel less like a headline and more like a story you've been quietly following for years, almost like people you know personally. And that might be the real reason this moment struck a chord. It wasn't about revealing something scandalous or shocking. It was about revealing something familiar, the kind of soft, unremarkable intimacy that exists in almost every long relationship, celebrity or not. Two people who've built a life together, choosing to let the world see a small piece of that life exactly as it was, without polish or explanation. There's a lesson buried in there too, whether or not it was intended. Relationships that last aren't built on constant grand gestures. They're built on thousands of small, unphotographed moments, most of which no one ever sees. Every so often, one of those moments gets shared, and suddenly people are reminded that the version of a couple they see publicly is only a fraction of the story. The rest happens quietly, off camera, in the years and years that make up an actual marriage. Maybe that's why so many viewers couldn't stop thinking about this particular post. It wasn't really about nostalgia for a specific photo. It was about what the photo symbolized: history, continuity, the quiet proof that two people who met years ago are still choosing each other, still comfortable enough to let the world glimpse the version of them that exists when no one else is watching. Perhaps the reason so many people remain invested in Kelly and Mark isn't simply because they've spent decades in the spotlight together. It's because audiences continue to see something genuine in the way they navigate life. The humor, the honesty, and every so often, a small unguarded glimpse like this one that reminds everyone why the connection never really faded. And maybe that's why moments like this stay with viewers long after the scrolling stops. If this resonated with you, share what you think it says about long-term relationships in the comments. What's your favorite Kelly and Mark moment, on screen or off? And do you think it's these small, unfiltered glimpses that keep audiences so emotionally invested in a couple, even after all these years?